Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Sunday, June the 28th. And as we like to do just about every Sunday, we'll be chatting with our good friend George Rodriguez from South Texas. George, welcome. It's always great to have you.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
All right. Well, let me begin with I'm a baseball fan, so I'm going to make a little baseball on this day in history reference here. Joe DiMaggio got to number 40 on this day back in 1941. He eventually ended up with 56. Um, and, you know, obviously, I don't remember this other than reading about it and watching, documentaries. But I don't know if people who are not, you don't have to be, let me put it this way, you don't have to be a huge baseball fan to understand how incredible that is to get a base hit in 56 consecutive games when you're facing major league pitching and when you're facing pitchers who want to break the record. I mean, who don't want you to set. I mean, they were literally pitchers who were trying to get him out at a major league level, and this guy still got to 56. I think that might be the most difficult record ever in sports to break. I don't know if any, because the second closest to him was Pete Rose, and that was in 1978, and Pete got to 44. There's a big difference between 44 and 56. I mean, 12 games. So anyway, as I say, I don't have any personal memory of it, but every year around this time when on this day in history comes up and I see DiMaggio counting down to 56, I just grow more. I admire that event more and more, George.
Yeah, I think, anybody that has played baseball or even softball knows that it's very, very difficult to get that many hits. And when we talk about hits, we're not talking just about hitting the ball. We're talking about getting on base.
Right.
Getting on base. It is absolutely remarkable feat.
And when you and when you consider that the best hitters go back to the dugout 70% of the time.
Yeah.
So the odds are completely against you to get a hit. 70% of the time, the best ones, 70% of the time are going to go back to the dugout because a 300 hitter, meaning 3 out of 10, is considered to be a great hitter.
Yep.
So for this guy to do it for 56 games, I mean, it's just unbelievable. And the other interesting thing, and I saw this in a documentary about the streak. One of the things that the streak did was to entertain the country.
Yes.
In the summer of 41, which is the summer right before, Pearl Harbor. And the country was very, very concerned about war, nervous about war. And many people thought we'd be in a war. They didn't necessarily know how, but people were very worried about that we would have to go to war. The world at the moment was crazy. I mean, totally crazy in Europe and Asia. And DiMaggio was this like daily distraction for the country. It was really remarkable. I mean, I remember watching a documentary and people would literally, those were the days when people would go to the store and buy a newspaper. And the first thing they do is go to the sports page to check and see if he got one. I mean, just remarkable thing. So anyway, Joe DiMaggio, number 40, on his way to 56. I think we can safely say, George, that record will never be broken.
Yeah.
I just that and
Nolan,
that
amount to climb.
Yeah, and that and Nolan Ryan's 5,700 strikeouts. Those two will I'll safely say that they will live on forever because they're such incredible stats. Anyway, let's begin with Texas politics. Mr. Paxton, Mr. Talarico. I guess the campaign hasn't quite gotten started yet, but it is a little bit. And some of the betting services are now starting to show Attorney General Paxton, inching up on Talarico. I mean, it's still the Talarico side will make the argument that it's like 49-48, 43-42. And that's true, that some of the polls show that. Now, there's one apparently that someone said there's one out there, 52-47, but I haven't seen that. But my point is that
Talarico
no,
for
tell
Tal.
Paxton 5247.
Oh yeah,
Which
I
that
saw
may
that one. Yes,
did
yes,
you
there
see
is.
that?
I
Okay,
have
all
seen
right.
it.
All right. That I heard about, but I had not seen. Was it
Yeah,
a Texas poll or
it
national
is.
poll?
It is a Texas poll, and
Okay.
it is. It was conducted out of Houston, which makes it even more, to me, more credible because if you do it out of Austin, quite often those are very
Right.
liberal organizations that are doing it. But I think what has happened is that previous to this, nobody was really paying attention
Right.
to Talarico. Nobody knew who he was. He was an unknown quality. He looked good. He was photogenic, and all of a sudden, the truth is out,
Right.
and it's coming out even more every day. And I think that to be honest with you, I think he's in a free fall. I don't think he's going to recover.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And it seems like this campaign between Talarico and Paxton is starting to remind me a little bit of Abbott and Beto O'Rourke, Governor Abbott and Beto O'Rourke, in the sense that the governor just went after Beto O'Rourke with all those ads. Remember all those
Yeah,
ads where they were using his own words? I mean, they weren't, I mean, they were basically putting videos on the screen of Beto O'Rourke saying this and saying that. And that those ads were very effective for Governor Abbott. He ended up winning 54. I just saw the number today. He ended up winning 54-44 or something, or 54-42. So that was a big, nice win for Governor Abbott. But this, I don't know if this one will end up that way. I wouldn't be surprised if it does. But I think what the Paxton campaign is doing is that they're digging up these videos. Like he said something about Christianity. Um, I think that speech at the Democrat convention where somebody was saying, if they say he's trans, I guess we're all trans now.
yeah,
I don't know who delivered that speech, but that was stupid.
yeah.
That was a really,
No,
and
I
then
mean
of course,
that was him. He said that.
oh,
He said
okay.
that.
All right.
He said that that he was sympathetic towards trans, and not only trans, not only he was trying to mimic. What he was trying to do
Okay.
was mimic when Kennedy when Kennedy stood at the Berlin Wall and said, "We are all Berliners."
Right.
He tried to mimic that and say that we are all transgender. Well, I'm sorry, that
Well,
really
that's a
blows
big difference. I
a
mean, that is a
big difference
huge
there.
between John
It, it,
Kennedy, or
it he's
president.
getting blowback on that. On the other one, the
Yeah.
one last week that he
Right.
that
About
that came out
Christianity, wasn't it?
about Christianity, that he is a Christian who hates Christianity. Now, what kind of a statement is that?
Well, that is the statement. I mean, I don't have a logical explanation for it, but let me try to guess. He spent much of his career speaking in front of these groups where statements like that would be applauded. So he spent a lot of time as a guest on podcasts where saying stuff like that would get you clicks or would get you invited back. Because I mean, let's face it, this is a guy nobody knew.
Yeah,
I mean, I had heard his name, before the primary with Jasmine Crockett, but I was not that familiar with him. I mean, it wasn't like, gee, I knew who he was. And I think that he spent a lot of time making a name out of himself in the blue bubble, and not just the blue bubble, but like, the extreme blue bubble, and saying a lot of these things that, nobody cared about. But now all of a sudden everybody does. It's sort of like when Beto O'Rourke said, we're going to take away your AR-15.
right.
Well, you say something like that, and I think he said it in a Democrat debate in 2020. I think that's when he said that.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden he's campaigning in Texas where he's talking to a totally different audience. And it just doesn't sound the same way, George.
Now, it's going to be very, very interesting how they will try to. I mean, the Democratic convention in Corpus this past weekend, the chairman, the Democrat chairman of the Texas State Senate, Wu, a guy named Wu. I can't remember what his first name is, but State Senator Wu said that they have a new strategy, a Texas strategy, because the national Democrat strategy doesn't work in Texas. So they are going to have a new strategy. I'm very, very anxious to find out what that means, because I mean, all it could mean was that they're going to lie. They're going to lie differently, I guess. I'm not sure.
Well, it probably means that they're going to show him eating more sausage, which has
Barbecue
been,
or whatever.
barbecue sausage. That that they're going to show more pictures of. They're trying to make him look Texan. And look, I guess he was born in Texas, so he is, a Texan. But his whole his whole rhetoric,
His demeanor is not Texan.
No, it's not. That's for sure. No, that leads me to another point, and that is this article that I sent to you today about how his support with the Black community.
It's really
it ain't working.
Yeah.
I mean, now part of that could be resentment because he beat Jasmine Crockett. Jasmine Crockett did not go to the convention and deliver the big unity speech. She didn't come out and do, holding hands in the air and saying we're in this together kind of thing. I don't know what her issue is. Maybe she's got other, I have no idea what she wants to do. But I think she's avoiding him because she knows that he's going down. And at the same time, I think she knows that he doesn't play well in the African-American community. And I think a lot of it is his personality. I mean, it just doesn't come across as, let me put it this way, he doesn't come across as the Lone Ranger.
Yeah. Yeah. The situation that they've got with the Black community, I think, is something that is very, very concerning to the Democrats, because they're going to have to do something about it before the national election in another 2 years. At this point, I think that the Black voters, the Black Democrat voters, are being encouraged by folks like Jasmine Crockett to stay away. And, this is a monster that the Democrats have created. They have a patchwork of special interest groups, of special groups, whether they're Hispanics, whether they are Blacks, Asians, Muslims, women, gays. They've got a patchwork. And, they are always saying how diversity is great. Well, until diversity falls apart on you. And this is what they're seeing right now. So I'm not sure. I don't know, how they can recover from this, other than, trying to get somebody who's very stubborn, like Jasmine Crockett, to shut up and come over.
Well, one thing that, if you look at what happened with the Democrats in New York this week, where they won these victories, they won those victories primarily with young white people.
Exactly.
You didn't see a lot of, Hispanics or Puerto Ricans, I guess, in that New York obviously has a huge Puerto Rican population. You didn't see a lot of that. I was watching just for a little bit, the victory party of one of these people. And it's like you were wondering, it was almost like a picture out of the South in the 50s. It was all white people in this party. You're saying, well, where are the Blacks? Well, they weren't there. And I think it's because a big problem they're having is that they're focusing so much on these issues, about, transgenders and climate change and free rent and stuff like that. They're not really talking about job creation, which is, what a lot of these African American neighborhoods need.
The creation of personal individual wealth is what America is all about. And creation of wealth is what socialists are opposed on. Yeah. So, this is the in my opinion, the message that needs to go out to young minorities is that socialism doesn't work because it doesn't allow you to create your own wealth.
That's it. And there's, plenty of evidence of it. It's not like you have to look very hard at socialism not working. I mean, but I just find it fascinating. I mean, you look at some of these elections last Tuesday night, and who's behind all these victories? You look at the audience; they're a bunch of white, 20-something white,
Yeah.
young people, very well educated. I'll give them
Who
that.
have never traveled or lived in a socialist country.
Or who don't understand, who think that, gee, I'm going to vote for this guy and he's going to cut the rent in New York. No, he cannot cut the rent in New York. I mean, that's just reality. So I think, you get the feeling that, maybe this new Democrat socialist movement is leaving out the most loyal part of the Democrat Party,
Yeah.
which has been the black vote.
Particularly fighting for illegal aliens.
Well, that's another issue.
They are almost being replaced.
Yeah, that is another issue too. Where I think, look at in Chicago, they were having problems with some of the locals there, and some of these people who were getting benefits, and there were all kinds of demonstrations and, protest in front of the mayor's office about, hey, what about us? We've been here longer. We're part of the, we voted for you, and then you have all these benefits. Yeah, well, that's another point. So I think that, it's starting to look a lot like Talarico, as you say, is imploding. Now, the only thing I suppose that the only hope that they have, the Talarico side, it's that some major scandal breaks out about Paxton. But my guess is that would have come out already.
I mean,
Cornyn would have put it. Well,
Cornyn would have put it front and center.
So I think everything bad about Paxton is out there now.
Mm-hmm. And I just think, I mean, I would hope that this implosion that's going to happen with the Democrats here in Texas, that it carries into the national stream, because I don't see them being challenged. I don't see the Democrats being challenged anywhere, like they are going to be challenged here in Texas.
Right.
That they are going to be exposed as much as they are here in Texas. And
well, that's true. That's a good point.
I certainly hope that it carries to a national.
I think so because and I'm assuming Paxton is only starting with his ads.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot more.
I
bet they have a lot more. And here's my prediction. I think you'll see the same thing that happened to Beto O'Rourke in 2022 will happen to James Talarico. Back in 2022, in September, the Democrats made the decision that Beto was not going to win. So they cut the money. And he had to basically struggle the total contrast to what happened in 18 when he had way too much money. And I think that's the same thing that's going to happen with Talarico, that sometime in September, when the Democrats are looking at the national map and realizing that they're not really going to win Maine like they thought they were, they're going to have to defend Michigan, because that's John James up there, Republican John James, looks really good. And then Georgia is probably going to be very competitive. So they've got some tough seats they got to protect. And that's, I'm sure, where the money's going to go, rather than Texas, which will be seen once again as the pipe dream for them. So I think that watch for September. That's the same thing that happened to Beto O'Rourke. And I remember, I think we talked about this 4 years ago when we were doing our conversations, that, that the Beto O'Rourke, he just ran out of money. He didn't have the same money in September, or frankly, the same enthusiasm.
That was what he ran out of, the enthusiasm.
Yeah. And because, who back in 2018, somebody was funding him to the extent that he had a lot of college kids working in the campaign. Well,
he was getting money from outside Texas.
He was
a lot of money from outside of Texas.
Huge numbers.
And so that, that really never dried out. It was his enthusiasm. It was the support in Texas that ran out, because, he had nothing. I mean, what he had was anti-Texan. And
also, in all fairness, I also think that Governor Abbott was a much stronger candidate.
Oh, much stronger, of course.
Than Senator Ted Cruz did not run a good campaign that year.
No.
And I'm happy that he won, but it was not a great campaign.
No.
Whereas Governor Abbott came in ready from day one.
Swinging.
Mean, as soon as he won the primary, and Beto O'Rourke won the primary, the campaign was on.
Yep.
And they were out to get Beto, and they were out to paint him and frame Beto as a liberal. And they did a heck of a job. So I think that's some similarity to what is happening this year. But anyway, the Democrat convention you say was in Corpus, and did anybody? I think Bernie Sanders showed up, right?
Yeah, Bernie Sanders showed up, and I believe that there's going to be some more outrageous comments that are going to be coming out of that that convention tomorrow. But there was a lot of discussion about climate change, a lot of support for the idea of abolishing ICE. There was a lot of discussion regarding the issue of oil destroying the world, and I mean things that are just, well, I consider them nonsense, Democrat nonsense.
Well, and it's just the kind of
they're going to bring them to the front,
right? And it's just the kind of thing that kills them. That kills them in the corporate. I mean, Corpus Christi, ironically, is where all the refineries are.
Yeah, right.
So I mean, you're talking about telling all those Hispanics who work down there and in Corpus, in those refineries, you're telling them that, hey, that's your problem, climate change. And they're looking at him saying, well, yeah, but what about my job at the refinery, So I think that worked against Kamala Harris, from what I understand back in 2024, that climate change just doesn't play well in an area like Corpus Christi where they have all those refineries.
At the height of the campaign, in when she had the campaign going, the worst. I mean, that's when the worst of the border crisis was going on, and she wouldn't address that at all. I mean,
right, and then when the people forget that the economy of South Texas. This is something that came up later when they were analyzing her results in South Texas, having been so, or the success of Trump in South Texas. A lot of people were analyzing, how did that happen? Well, part of the reason is that the oil industry is huge here. And when you talk about the evil oil, you're not just talking about, climate change. You're also talking about jobs in South Texas. So anyway, so I think that's, but I'm gonna tell you, George, I think the Talarico's campaign will really, just the air will come out of it completely.
Yeah.
In September, when the Democrats decide this is not worth money, and they just start pulling back and forward, because they've got some tough fights. They've got to defend Michigan, and New Hampshire apparently is competitive, and Georgia is competitive. So those are 3 seats they want to keep, and they have a better shot of keeping those seats than winning Texas. I mean, realistically. So the money's going to have to go to the places where it can be used better. And you know how it is in campaigns.
Yeah,
you got to put your money where your chances are. You can't just chase.
And I don't think that they want to. When it comes to the national campaign and the national amount of money that the national coffers that the Democrats have, I mean, they need to remember that they were deep in debt.
Right.
They were left deep in debt by the what's her name, Kamala's campaign. I mean, there's debt, really heavily in debt by Kamala's campaign. So I'm not sure. I think they're going to have to squeeze some pennies.
Well, one of the things that speaking of that topic, I just read that, or I was listening to a podcast of somebody was saying that the Republicans are flooded with money for this midterm.
Yeah.
That they've got lots of money that they're going to use, and that'll probably happen around Labor Day. So anyway, so that's that. So Bernie Sanders came. See, I think if you want to win in Texas, you don't bring Bernie Sanders to your convention. I mean, it's just not a good idea.
The Democrat socialists flexing their arms.
Yeah. I think Bernie would be a better draw in other places, but not in Texas. Even taking into consideration that he's speaking to a Democrat convention, he's not your best. He's not your best speaker. I mean, that's the reality. Well, let's talk about, speaking of Texas, there's another issue that the legislature is talking about, and that's these including Bible references in the curriculum. Now, these would be public schools, of course, that we're talking about. Catholic schools and religious schools have always had biblical references, and they pray and all of that. So that we're talking exclusively here about public schools. And I've already seen a couple of things of some people who are very concerned about how we're going to push, I guess, Christianity on Jewish kids or Muslim kids, that somehow we're going to become a Christian nation and all this kind of stuff, which is not what this is about. This is not about pushing any of that. I mean, I don't think the Jewish kids are going to be that upset, because a lot of the references they're going to make are Judeo-Christian messages, from the Bible.
A lot of them come out of the Old Testament. So.
Of the Old Testament, yeah. So I mean, if they talk about, for example, some of the great prophets and all of that, many of them are people that the Jewish kids are going to be very familiar with, like Abraham or whatever, Moses and all that kind of stuff. But I've never seen, before the show we were talking about how at one time we used to learn that in school, and that's exactly right. We used to learn about the influence of the Bible, not as a way of trying to convert me into Christianity, but simply as a source of history, George.
It's very, very interesting how folks that oppose the Bible readings would not oppose the study of Lenin and Marx and their teachings. This situation that we've got with the teachings of that are found in the Bible, it's not to convert folks. It is to lay a foundation for the culture and thinking that is Western civilization. Western civilization, which is completely under attack from leftists. Western civilization is all about, has its foundations in Judeo-Christian thinking. And there's nothing wrong with starting a day with a thought that fundamentally strengthens your culture, your values, your way of thinking. And, I just don't see the problem. The problem is when these folks who would prefer, as they say, to get religion out of public schools, instead what they're saying is that they'd like to get communism, in my opinion, or Marxism into the public schools.
Well, they want to, secularize. Secular. I mean, a secular education. Well, look, that's not realistic, because if you're going to teach even the United States history,
yes,
I mean, Thomas Jefferson wrote that we were created or made by Creator.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what Creator was he talking about? Certainly not talking about Muhammad. I mean, he was obviously talking about, how can I put it? Just this idea that they have to criticize everything, that they have to criticize everything that we value, everything that we find important to our culture. Now,
they've got to make a contrary stand to everything that is social or about our society.
I agree. Now, for example, if when you go to a Catholic school like I did for a while, yes, you do learn about the Hail Mary,
right?
And you learn about
That's
Mary.
Understandable.
But that's a Catholic school. Just like if you go to a Jewish school, you're going to learn about their story. But that's different here. Here, we're not talking about the kids reading the Hail Mary. We're talking about kids learning about the importance of Judeo-Christian values in Western civilization. And I
About
don't see
telling
how
the
you,
truth.
yeah,
About
I don't see
telling
how
the
you can
truth.
separate the two.
Yeah.
I don't see how you can tell the history of Western civilization without telling the influence of the Judeo-Christian faith. I don't see how you can do it. And for people to somehow think that, you know, you're pushing a religion, no. How are you pushing a religion telling people about the Ten Commandments?
Yeah.
How so?
And
Anyway,
morality. Can you imagine?
yeah, morality and stuff like that. I think that, or you know,
Well, when you want to teach, when instead of teaching a morality found in the Bible, and you instead want to teach a morality about Bobby having two daddies or two mommies, I think that that's where the clash is.
right, and that's where the parents object. I will make a prediction. I think a lot of Hispanic parents are going to be very happy,
Yeah,
with references to the, again, not to the Bible itself, but references to figures in the Bible and references to things that happened throughout history that are written about in the Bible. I think a lot of Hispanic parents will support that because I think they're religious by nature. Also, blacks too. A lot of African Americans who are very religious as well. Well, let me do one more topic here, George, before we go. The Supreme Court this week wrote an opinion about the TPS program, temporary. I don't know what the other two words
temporary
stand.
permanent, temporary status, temporary
Okay.
protective,
Protective
temporary
status,
protective.
which was done to bring people from different countries who were in the middle of a civil war or whatever. Which is, you know, we've done stuff like that before. It's not the first time, but. For example, the Cubans came here. I came here with my parents, but we didn't come here on a temporary basis. We actually came in on a permanent basis.
Yeah, right.
And once we crossed immigration and we were on the other side of the immigration office, and you know, our papers had been approved and all of that, my father could work right away. You know, we were not a temporary people. And that was because the Congress created the law that allowed Cubans to come in. Now, that was a very unique situation. I'm sure you're very familiar with it because I know you worked in Reagan's immigration amnesty back in the late 80s. But the Cuban situation was in the middle of the Cold War, and Cubans were given that opportunity because, well, it was a Cold War. We were in the middle of the Cold War, and the Cubans were seen as victims of
Communism, yes.
Yeah, we were not seen as economic refugees.
Yeah.
And so that, you know, comparing what happened to me, a lot of people want to make that comparison. Well, you know, you were a refugee one time and therefore you should accept any kind of refugee. I said, no, it's not comparable at all what the Cubans went through. That was a very unique situation that we had, and the Congress approved it, which is another thing that people forget. It was not executive orders by the president of the United States, as was the case with this TPS. So I think it was done incorrectly. The Supreme Court corrected the situation. Now, how we handle these people returning, you know, we can be compassionate with that. We can be, you know, I don't think that you're going to have all of a sudden planes full of Haitians going back to Haiti. But one thing that I did notice, George, in reading about this, is many of these people never actually came from Haiti.
No, they didn't.
They were in other countries where they had already been granted, I guess.
Many were in Chile, many were in
Right.
Brazil. Yeah. I mean,
so it wasn't like in the case of the Cubans, we came from Cuba.
Exactly.
You know, many of these people had already left Haiti and gone to other countries. And then when they were there, they were told, hey, you can come to the United States, when they already had asylum and in many cases had jobs. I mean, I know of Venezuelans that I've spoken to who were working in Chile.
Yeah.
And in other countries. And you know, they were doing okay. And in many cases, some of them have had more difficulties coming here because they've had to learn the language, whereas in Chile, they didn't have to. So I think this was the right call by the Supreme Court, and how we handle it now, meaning the people who are here, you know, we can be compassionate, we can be logical about it. But I hope the message goes out that if you issue temporary, that's what it means, George.
Yeah. Well, that's it. And I think that once again, the left, the liberals, the Democrats are using word games to try to promote their agenda, using the word games like when they talk about migrants rather than illegal aliens. They've stopped using the term illegal aliens. They've stopped using the term illegal.
Right.
And there are senators. There was one senator the other day who was yelling at the Homeland Security Secretary Marquardt, telling him that he was offended by the word illegal or undocumented. Well, that's what they are. And in this case, they are temporary. They had temporary protection.
Right.
And the temporary protection is over, and it was misused. Not only is it over, it was misused to begin with. Like you said, vast majority of these Haitians were coming from Chile. When I went down personally to interview some folks at the migrant center here in San Antonio and in Del Rio, that I spoke to Haitians, all of the ones that I spoke to were coming from Chile, all of them. And they were coming because they claimed that they were being persecuted by the economy. And I mean, what does that mean? That means that there was, that there were no jobs. Well, I'm sorry. We have no jobs in Chicago. We have no jobs on the east side of San Antonio.
That's right.
The other thing is that there was another Democrat senator that was talking about the issue that these people, if they are deported, they're going to be deported back to violence. Well, I got news for you. There's violence in Chicago. There's violence in New York. There's violence in Houston. I mean, these arguments are just arguments that are trying to be used for the sake of defending illegal immigration. And we've got to stop it.
I love the one irregular immigration. That's the other one that's become popular now, irregular immigration. But I think the bottom line here is these temporary passes or whatever they were called, temporary protection. The word is temporary. And they should have
whatever that means.
Yeah, well, obviously it wasn't temporary because it went on in some cases for a lot of years.
Yeah.
And I just think that, hey, if you come into the country on a temporary protection, I understand that. I mean, I'm willing to work with you with that. But, at some point you have to go back. You can't just stay here. Temporary cannot become a way of just, having a bunch of people here. Now, when you're here on a temporary basis, can you work? Do these people have an opportunity?
No. In fact, but see, that was another thing that the Biden administration opened the door to allow some to work. And then it was never made clear as to which ones. And some of them started working on their own.
Right.
I have a niece that lives in Springfield, Ohio, the center point of where all of these Haitians were living. And while the national news media tried to play up the sympathy, she said that there were all sorts of problems there. That people would hang out at the supermarkets and beg and steal, and I mean it was a problem. They're coming from a third world country where law and order has broken down, right. And they bring those values with them. This is another thing that we need to be very, very honest about.
Now, if somebody, George, because you know this as well as anybody, having worked in that amnesty program that Reagan did, how do you compare, for example, the situation that brought me and my parents here back in the 60s, where we came to the United States, and many people throw that at me now, and they say, well, you guys, you shouldn't, you cannot criticize, anything because you came here as an immigrant. And how would you compare the Cuban experience, for example, with what happened with the Haitians and some of the other groups? I mean, I would think one easy comparison, George, would be the fact that we came from Cuba. We were not in another country to begin with. And correct me if I'm wrong, but we had a congressional, there was a law that was passed by Congress to allow us to come in legally.
Well, the biggest difference, and it's night and day. The biggest difference is that you were fleeing communism.
Right.
And communism had literally taken everything away from your parents. I mean, there's no debate. There's no two ways around it. your freedom of speech, your freedom of movement, everything was gone. That is not the case with these folks. These people are fleeing poverty.
Right.
They are fleeing poverty. They claim that they are fleeing dictators, but the dictators are a result of the poverty. They are not a result of Moscow bringing in thugs, taking over the government, and then stationing military folks like they did in Cuba.
Right. And it was also in the middle of the Cold War.
Well, we had
a Cold War going on where everybody in the United States, I mean, when I came here, everybody understood why I was here.
Exactly.
I mean, it wasn't like somebody was saying, gee, why did you come from Cuba?
Yeah,
I mean, it seemed like everybody knew that I was coming from a communist country. I mean, I had friends in school and everything. And it's like I remember you go to your friends' houses and the parents would say, oh, gee, how's your family in Cuba? It must be pretty rough down there with communism. So it was like, it wasn't a surprise as to why the government opened its doors to us in much the same way that it opened it, let's say, to Hungarians in 1956. When
I've got a very good friend who came as a little kid, just like you, from Hungary. Right after the
Soviet invasion. Yeah, in 1956. That was in 1956. That was in 1956 when the Soviets, they dressed it up as the Warsaw Pact. But that's what it was, Soviet tanks. And then Czechoslovakia in 1968. Right. So, I mean, those were situations where I think there was people understood your political standing. But now these are basically economic refugees.
They are not fleeing politics. They are fleeing economics. And again, the economics, once again, very different, very, very different from a communist country. Their economics are a situation where it's poor leadership. It's poverty that has been established and, funneled. You have a wealthy class and you have a poor class. And it is not something that, again, the taxpayer is threatened by communism. The taxpayer is not threatened by poverty in Haiti.
Right. And in the case of Haiti, look, Haiti's been a basket case for a long time.
It is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere.
And I feel horrible about Haiti. I mean, I understand if I was in Haiti, I'd probably want to get out too.
Exactly.
But at the same time, I mean, you can't just accept people. I mean, it's like with Mexico. People say, well, I want to leave Mexico. I mean, I remember having this conversation with a immigration activist, one of those guys. I was having this conversation with an immigration activist about people leaving Mexico and leaving oppression. And I said, well, give me a break. You have elections in Mexico. You have a U.S. embassy in Mexico. You're leaving poverty. Now, I'm not saying that the poverty is not real.
Yes,
or that they can't do better here, but that's totally different. I mean, to compare that to what happened to the Cubans is like, I mean,
if you want to come to the United States, there's a proper way to do it. If you are fleeing communism, there's a proper way to do it.
Absolutely.
There's a proper way to do it. And,
absolutely,
running across the river like millions did in the past 4 years is not the way.
No, absolutely. And it created all kinds of problems like this problem of the TPS, where people were just coming in. They were given a temporary pass or whatever they're called, protection, and temporary protection became permanent protection, I guess. Yeah. And now that you want to, correct the situation, the first thing they do is to call you a racist.
Exactly.
Which is what they always do. Of course, I mean, if you want the immigration laws respected, now you're a racist.
Now you're a racist.
Or anti-immigration. And it's offensive, I think. And I'm offended because I remember what my parents went through and how they had to go through all the paperwork and all the process to come here.
Exactly.
And it angers me that somebody would
first of all, that they would make the comparison, and then that they would claim that you got some kind of preferential treatment.
Yeah.
Just because. Not because of anything.
Right.
Anything really that was happening, but just
right. You had a communist regime in Cuba that was an enemy of the United States, We had just gone through the missile crisis with it. So, yeah, I mean, that's very different than, whatever's happening in Haiti, where, again, I understand it's a disaster. But the problem in Haiti is very complicated and something that I don't quite understand. But the poverty, I mean, I remember in school one time doing a project about Haiti, and it's the same situation. It's like back in the 1970s doing a project about Haiti, and not much has changed, George. It's just a sad situation, Haiti.
It really is.
Oh, it is. It's a terrible situation, and they've had horrible governments. Um, anyway, but to compare that with the Cubans, so to somehow say, "Gee, you guys had preferential," it's not comparable at all. Well, we got into a lot today, George. There was actually one more Supreme Court opinion. Well, actually two that are coming up. One is, we'll be talking about that next Sunday, I'm sure. The birthright opinion,
Right.
which I believe, I'm going to make a prediction that they say that President Trump cannot do it by executive order, but they will encourage a discussion of the topic.
Yeah.
Because I think the justices will say, look, he cannot do it by executive order, but yeah, this is stretching a little bit the 14th Amendment.
It has been stretched.
And if they do that, I'll be happy. Now, the other big decision is on Election Day, or the meaning of Election Day, which that's going to be an interesting one, because I just read yesterday, George, to me, this is insane. The election in California was June 2nd, and there are still 50,000 votes that have not been counted. I mean,
but they've already declared the winners.
Well, sure. But I mean, I'm sitting there saying, wait a minute, 50,000 votes have not been counted. And we're almost, 3 weeks?
Yeah.
I mean, are they using horses to carry the ballots? Or, I mean, what kind of a joke is
and
this?
They want to expand the pool of voters. It's not like they're trying to make it easier and faster. No. They're going to expand it.
Right. Well, a week ago Sunday, George, they had an election in Colombia. Something like 19 million people voted. We knew the election results pretty much by 9:00 Sunday night.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
The week before, they had one in Peru. We knew that was
very
close to
those two places, they have voter ID.
That's correct. Now, in Peru, they had to wait a few days because some of the areas were rural. And there were also some votes outside of the country that they had to count, which I understand. But they've done it. They've done it a lot faster than California. And then we call these countries third world, and they have much better voting system than we do. At least, well, California, because I like the way we do it in Texas. I think we do it well in Texas as far as voting, the process, that is. But it is, I'll say one last thing before we go. I think it's unfair on me as a citizen that I have to show an ID to vote for president in Texas, but someone in California doesn't.
Yeah.
That's not an even game.
That's it.
I'm not talking about state elections.
No.
I'm talking about a presidential or the Senate. That doesn't seem to me. It seems to me that that's putting me at a disadvantage as a voter. Because somebody in California can vote.
Your vote can be very easily canceled by somebody in California.
That's right. That's exactly right. All right, George. Good to see you again. And I had a little screaming in the background there with some grandkids who wanted to be part of the choir, but I hope it was not too loud. I hope that they didn't mess up our conversation too much. But could you hear them?
I could hear them a little bit. Yes,
a little bit. Yeah.
But,
well, they make a lot of noise. They make a lot of noise.
Kids, and it's the U.S. and it's family. So
right. Well, that's it. But they make a lot of noise, and that's good for them. All right, George. Great to see you, and we'll see you the next time. Thank you for joining us.
You got it. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you so much. Our good friend, George Rodriguez down in South Texas, just going over some things related to Texas. As I say, there's two big Supreme Court decisions pending, the one on birthright and the one on Election Day. I think Election Day is going to go. I think most people expect that they'll say that Election Day is Election Day. The birthright, there's still a lot of issues. But if they come out and say, President Trump cannot do it by executive order, but we need to have a conversation about the meaning of the 14th Amendment because it's not being interpreted correctly. I think if they do that, I'll be very happy because then it'll go back to the states, and the states, we can either amend the Constitution or do whatever we have to do. But this idea that people can just cross the border and have a baby, and that baby is all of a sudden an American citizen, no, that doesn't add up for those of us who had to actually become citizens the right way. Well, thank you so much. Have a great weekend, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas.